Up next, a real question from a real ute owner who is scratching his friggin' head all over town, and a totally made up answer from a dude audacious enough to call himself an expert. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, and I get new cars friggin' cheap. Australia only. Website. Card. Now, let's hearken. We'll get on with it. And I say that because this question comes from Harkin. Harkin Bernafors. Harkin. I bet he can fight. He's the first Harkin ute owner I've ever dealt with. That's amazing. That's all I'm going to say on that. Harkin says, you seem to have found a Nissan Navara with 2 R's, interestingly enough, with coil springs, one word. And I, not being an auto expert, have not found one. My old Nissan ST 2016 had leaf springs. My new RX 2016, a B double took the other one. I bet that was memorable. Also have leaf springs. A friend's, with no apostrophe, new Nissan Navara, this is going to be hard to keep up with, 2022 has leaf springs, and when I look at carsales.com.au on the chassis dealers are trying to sell today, leaf springs, one word. So, which has the coil? Exactly, dude. Which has the coil? What for do you kick my dog and call him fuck off? Hasn't it? What do you think of the leaf spring version? Second for towing. Okay, let's deal with what do I think of the leaf spring version. Leaf springs are generally better for towing. They just are. They deal with a heavier load at the rear better. Cantilever it all the way out the back, and certainly that's the way it seems to have played out for Navara for all of these years now. The coil spring ones are better for unladen ride quality, and the leaf sprung ones, which you have, are better for towing, which is good because that's what you do. Now, the coil spring ones are a legacy of the co-design of this platform with Mercedes-Benz for the X-Class ute, and that worked out so well for Mercedes. They can agree. So we'll deal with which ones actually have the coils in just a sec. It's pretty simple. Hagen goes on and says, second for towing, I tow for work, not off-road playing in sand, and avoid Dingo X creeks. Good idea. I picked up the RX single-turbo 2.3-litre diesel as the ST's double-turbo 2.3-litre diesel is overpowered for my work, towing. I actually think that the salient difference, it's only about 12% or something in power. That would be in the mid-range and at peak power. Certainly not more than 20%. If I did research, I could tell you the actual number, but it's like in that ballpark of 12 to 20% difference, okay? So you really, or you might feel it, but the salient difference between bi-turbo engines and single-turbo engines is that you have to rev the bi-turbo one harder to achieve the power because the second turbo doesn't kick in, obviously, until higher up in terms of load and revs and things of that nature. So I get where you're going with this. The 2.3 single-turbo is probably quite okay for towing and really not all that much different, you know, because towing is a hopefully conservative undertaking. Certainly it is for Harkin, okay? He says, I don't go over 80 when I tow 2.5 to 3 tonnes plus load on ute. Good idea, dude. That's pretty heavy. Not above GVM, GCM or rear axle load. 2 thumbs up for compliance, dude. Well done. Harkin. Okay. As I want to be able to stop, and not get fined and still have insurance coverage and all that important stuff, dude. It is really important to be conservative when you're heavy loaded. I agree. When I can go over the Great Dividing Range in 6th gear with trailer and load around 3 tonnes, I find this good enough for me. Okay, so there's a lot of elevation change over the Great Dividing Range, and I'd suggest that going uphill in 6th is probably bad practice because of the amount of stress that kind of thing puts on the driveline. It would probably be better to rev just a little bit more and drop back a little bit more often, better for operational longevity, let's just say. It's a hedge against some loud noise and then forward progress stopping a few years down the track. Okay, but do it if you want, dude. Like, It's your ute. I find this good enough for me. If I need to go to 3.5 at some point, I guess I will have to bite the bullet and go for fifth gear. Do it anyway, dude. Fifth is not a crime against humanity. It's actually good for longevity when you're towing something heavy uphill. So when I did compare 2018, no other 4x4 ute came close to the Navaras, with 2 R's, all around good specs, fuel, service load, etc. And when I did it again in 2019, nothing changed. Still overall good workhorse. I'm glad you like it, dude. It's nice to hear from someone who likes his ute. I get that. All the best. Keep up the sarcasm. Keep up the sarcasm. The sarcasm's up right now, dude. You'll be pleased to learn. Although, you know, I must, as a professional at this kind of thing, I must say that if your sarcasm is up for, I think it's 2 hours, that qualifies as a medical emergency. So don't trivialise that. I mean, sarcasm in small doses, I think is probably best. So keep up the sarcasm and free speech use. And thanks for taking the time to read this. Harkin, Burnafor's there. I bet he's got a mean left hook. That left hook is the hardest punch to master, honestly. So as to the core question of which has leaf, what I'd suggest you do to confirm this is you download the Nissan Navara brochure and scroll past the first 42, what I would categorise as fairly masturbatory pages, okay? And what you want to do is just check your sarcasm, make sure it's kept up, and you want to go down the back to, so to speak, to the spec panel, which is where the money shot really is with things of this nature. So you arrive at the spec table and then you go right down the bottom and you see that the rear suspension options on the spec table are leaf spring or 5-link with shock absorber. Okay, so 5-link is a kind of euphemism for coils because 5-link is essentially the number of control mechanisms that you need to keep the coils bouncing up and down more or less vertically and the caravan and whatever following suit just behind as you climb over the great dividing range, thinking about my sarcasm for whatever reason, okay? Leaf springs, dude. All King Cab SL base chitoirs, King Cab STX and the dual cab SL cab chassis unit, okay? They're the ones which have leaf. As for which have coil, I'd say everything else. That would be 8 other variants. So it's 5 variants with leaves and 8 variants with coils. And the coils are all dual cab pickups, okay? So dual cabs with a tub on the back. They've all got coil. There's 8 of them. And that is right there, dude, in the spec friggin' sheet. But I'd suggest that because you're doing all this towing over the Great Dividing Range and Christ knows where else with a pretty heavy load, I think you are in exactly the right kind of Navara for you. And may I close in saying that I hearken hope that your sarcasm is kept up at least as often as mine, dude, because I think we all want that for each other, even if you're a chick.